Hello, everyone. It's Fun Pod. It's friends occasionally, but not disagreeing.
Are you sure?
Already fumbling on my words here.
He's drunk
Uh,
already.
I'm
We're
completely
filming this at
prepared for
9 in the
this one.
morning. He's already drunk.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fun Pod. It's the podcast that can't get its words out correctly. Um, let's just skip that segment and move on to the next one. I hope you all had a great start to the new year. It's possibly all downhill from here. Um, my name is Brett. I'm ashamed to admit that. I'm here with Cody and Justin tonight. Um,
That's funny.
we are here. It's first episode here after the new year. Perhaps I'm still drunk. What have you guys been up to? You have any like New Year's traditions to share? Anything like that? Anything fun?
Goodness. You want to go first, Justin, or me to go first?
You can go.
I'll
You can
chat. I'll chat. We went to some friend's house for New Year's Eve. We just celebrated with a couple games and get together. But um, one thing we've had a little more time here because we're on break still this weekend is a little more family time. So we've been doing some board gaming with the kids, and my wife and I actually just played a board game too. So shout out to a couple new ones. I think I just got like I don't even know, four new ones. Plus, we had a couple from last year that we didn't get to play. So we just played Ticket to Ride, the Legacy version, which is super cool to start. So you actually have like a puzzle piece version of the United States map, and like as territories open up in the history, like new chunks of the board actually will connect. Um, so that's pretty cool. So we have like East Coast without Florida right now, which we'll get, and then we'll get like the Great Plains and out west. But there's also like I don't know, I don't think either of you played Betrayal Legacy, did you? No.
I don't think so.
There's also like so when you complete a route, you actually have like this thing you punch a ticket card on it to like some of them you throw out of the game and like they're done already and nobody else can have that route again. Some of them you can use twice and then they're gone. But on the bottom of some of them, when you complete them, there's like a little story element to it. So when we finished the first game, like I had completed four routes and three of them had a little story piece to it, but you can only claim one story at the end of a game. So I had to pick which of the three. One was like about exotic animals, one was about like a rich couple, and one was about, I forget, like the Union on Strike or the railroad or something. So I chose the one with the rich couple, and it basically was like, we moved to New Orleans because we are trying to get away from blah, blah, blah. But the item that it gave me for future games was like something to remove curses, which my family doesn't know this yet. But so apparently there's going to be curses at some point because those are all secret. So intrigued to see where that goes. But just been playing a lot of board gaming. That's been fun. And also because I knew we were talking about our topic tonight, I did also make the world's largest mojito here. So I'm gonna drink this down while I try to get through our topic tonight.
Oh, sweet mercy. Best of luck to
Also,
you, sir.
also found out when I was pouring this that apparently somebody took the little topper off the giant rum bottle, so it did not come out slow.
Oh
It came out
no.
very fast.
Uh,
So that's where I'm at, which is, yeah, I don't know. So I just used the bottle a couple nights ago, so I don't know how that happened, but there we go. Justin, what have you been up to? Also drinking. Boy, this is like New Year's Eve all over again.
well, I mean, look at what's in store for us. But
Not snow. Just kidding.
For my New Year's Eve, I also played a couple board games with some friends, primarily Red Dragon Inn, and if you count it as a board game, which it essentially is, started up another run of Dokapon Kingdom, which
Oh boy.
is a fantastic game if you don't mind, really being at each other's throats.
Friendships
It
ending,
is.
yes.
Yep, it is billed as the friendship destroying game, where basically imagine Mario Party with RPG elements, kind of, and more of an overarching story. A a campaign of this can take weeks, if not months, if you play it regularly, and it's a lot of fun. Very much a backstabby, every man for himself kind of experience, but with the right group, a fantastic time. Um, Other than that, speaking of games, uh, if you're like me, and I know I am, you've got a huge backlog of games that you haven't played yet, and to try and help work my way through that, I leading up to the new year, put a thing out on Facebook asking people to just throw out a number between 1 and 1,000. And I don't have quite 1,000 games in my backlogs, but so I've anything above a certain point, I just kind of like loop. But I've gone through like my Steam wish list and whatever game, or not wish list, backlog library. And whatever game corresponds to whatever number is thrown out, that's the one I decide that I play next. I am currently in the middle of one called Darkness Within, Episode 1, In Pursuit of Loth Nolder, which is less a name and more a bad Scrabble hand. But it's a point-and-click adventure game from the early 2000s, and with a bit of a horror element, kind of a gothic, maybe Lovecraftian horror element at some point. It's interesting so far. There is a mechanic where you know there's a lot of reading, so you find like diary entries and journals and newspaper clippings. But there is a mechanic where you can like underline things in these various bits of media, and that will allow your character to find clues and draw connections. And it's not always obvious what you should be underlining, so that is kind of time consuming, but it's a neat mechanic that I don't think I've ever seen used before. But I might toss up a little bit of a review of this, just a text review on the website when I'm done, and we'll see where it goes from here. It's going to be an interesting experiment, I think. But I feel like I've rambled for a bit. What about you, Brett?
Well, this week on the adventures of Spider Gary vacated his bird skull home and built himself a nest in the top of his little terrarium, like a fully enclosed little cocoon thing that he made. So that was interesting to watch. And he ate some flightless fruit flies, which I guess makes them fruit crawls. But apparently they were delicious because he ate those down. So
like the world's fattest spider.
Yeah. So that continues to be an interesting little pet situation we got going on. We also this week upon being reminded of it again and finding out that it is currently free on Amazon, we watched Hundreds of Beavers, which has been recommended by Joe a few different times, and it definitely lived up to its name. It did have hundreds of beavers in it. It was I found it to be highly entertaining. It was like borderline like fever dream scenarios going on there. A lot of just really crazy slapstick that really kind of gets me pretty good. And we also have started watching What We Do in the Shadows, because that also now is available on Disney Plus through their Hulu like partnership. So I don't know if that's a recent thing that they just added it, but we recently discovered it, and so we started watching that. It's been really fun so far. It's been like their characters on there are very entertaining and fun to watch. So I think we'll probably continue watching that. But yes, let's dive into the topic here tonight. I feel like I've recovered from that opening fumble, and let's get into Cody seems to be not sure of that yet. So he's going to wait and see. We're here.
I mentioned I'm drinking out of the top of a giant fish mug specifically as well. It's not just a giant mug.
I wasn't certain what that shape was.
Yeah, I would tilt it. It's more fish-like when I tilt it, but then I'll spill all over myself, and I don't want to do that to, or at least on episode 9 here. So.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to come back and review the rest of the season of Secret Level, which is on Amazon Prime, in which we had previously reviewed the first 4 episodes to give a little intro, a little feeler to the series as it is. So I guess before we dive into the episodes, you guys want to talk about just have any of you played any of these games? Because I know in the first 4 that we reviewed, those were pretty spotty for us as far as ones we'd actually had played before. And as for myself here, I think mean, technically Pac-Man counts, I
I
guess.
thought I had
And
played Pac-Man.
yeah, exactly. Maybe I hadn't played Pac-Man. And then obviously Mega Man is a retro classic, and the one big one on here that I had definitely played through, like more modern game, was the Outer Worlds. But how about you guys? Were you familiar with these before watching these episodes?
Passingly familiar with some. Like you, the only ones I had played really were Pac-Man and Mega Man. I dabbled with a couple of the Warhammer 40K games. Like there was a real-time strategy one back in 2000 something that I remember playing and liking. Um, but other than that, I know there's a few of these that aren't out yet. Like Exodus isn't out yet.
Right.
And that sort of thing. But yeah, other than that, I hadn't really been familiar with too many of these. Like Crossfire is the only Crossfire I know is the board game from the 90s. So
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think I probably about the same, even less. Pac-Man, Mega Man. Um, the Outer Worlds I've never played, but I've always been intrigued by like the title art of that game. And beyond that, I have not dabbled in Warhammer, though I did get invited to Thanksgiving one time at a Warhammer shop. So
Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
and I guess I am.
I wish that was a joke.
Nice. Looking back at the list, I guess I am also passingly familiar with Armored Core, but I've not actually played any of those. From
Mm.
Software's Forgotten franchise.
You might have played the game before Armored Core. It was called Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure.
Ah, yes. That's why I felt so familiar.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, so it seems like most of these we're just passively familiar with at best here. So as I said, we've done the first 4 episodes. We're gonna start off here with episode 5. And I think I mean, we probably don't need to go, we're not gonna do a deep dive into all these episodes because that would probably just take too long. And some of these maybe don't really need to go too deep into them, but I'll just kind of give each episode just kind of a brief description of either the game or the plot, whatever. And then if we have any hot takes or any interesting thoughts on them, we'll just spit those out as we come into them. So episode 5 is on the game Warhammer 40K, which started as a miniature war game, like an actual physical board game rather than a video game. And although it has since evolved into a video game world. And the title of this one is called And They Shall Know No Fear. And this one features a sergeant, one of the Space Marines, who has essentially recruited a youth who he says knew no fear, basically right from birth. Like they didn't need to like beat it out of him in training, more or less. And also, they often repeat the phrase, "What could a soul like that be capable of?" This episode I enjoyed quite a bit. I do have to admit there was not a lot of story. It was basically just like a longer action scene. There's like not really any character development and very little dialogue. It's basically just like raw testosterone and just blood and guts smashing through a horde of enemies. They're pretty, like, I would say it has a lot of like, style, kind of like flashy kind of feel to it. But what was your guys' take on this one?
Um, Similar to yours, very stylish, not a lot of substance. I really liked the sequence where the only light was the glowing demon blood that they were spilling as they were carving their way through their enemies. So stylistically, this one was spot on. But by the end of it, I was kind of ready for it to be over because there wasn't a ton really to hook me aside from just the flashy visuals, personally.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. It looked pretty on screen, but it wasn't a plot that really grabbed me. Combined with the fact that you can hear me say this word a lot tonight, but just darkness, and I mean that both visually in some of these episodes, and then also like the story. Just they, yeah, I'll have more meta commentary on this later, but it's just interesting how and what they chose for this and how they presented those properties with each one. But this would be, I mean, this is a dark property, right? It's
Yeah,
pretty,
I would agree with that.
combat-y,
I think it coined the
Mhm.
term grimdark, or it may as well have. So
yeah, right. So this one was okay, I thought.
I did, yeah, like I admit it didn't have a lot of substance. It was basically just a lot of action. And I kind of felt like it was a pretty good length for that kind of casing that it was
Mhm.
presented in. Like I think if it had been longer than that, or like if this was, for example, like a movie, like a full length movie, and like this is all it was, that would get old pretty quick, I think. But I feel like at the length it was, for me, it felt really good. Like it was just a lot of fun, just I say just smashing through these aliens, and um yeah, I do enjoy that kind of thing a lot of the time. So this was probably higher on my list of my favorite episodes.
Okay.
Um Moving on, sounds like, pardon me. Moving on to episode 6, which is probably the one where we have a lot to talk about here. This is the one on Pac-Man, subtitled Circle. I'm just going to read off of the description that I found here on Wikipedia, so people can kind of understand what we're dealing with here. Says a humanoid creature with no memories awakens in an underground complex. He is greeted by a floating yellow sphere named Puck, who tells him he is the chosen who will escape the maze, an alien world of dangerous flora, fauna, and hungry ghosts, as they call them. At Puck's urging, he takes up a sword and practices for his role, killing and eating other life. When the swordsman fails to defeat the final guardian at the exit, Puck eats him, gaining the power to defeat the guardian. Realizing Puck is the one who is trapped and needs his body to escape, the swordsman rips Puck out of him and then dies. So this this episode certainly takes some liberties in the story and visuals of the Pac-Man that we know, and I think for the most part, people mostly love Pac-Man. Just very kind of twisted and like grotesque. Any other thoughts that really stand out for you guys?
I didn't know that's what the game was about. So
looking at the visuals here, especially like the design of the main character, it honestly it looked almost like he was Abe from Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey and all that. And I'm like, that's a really weird thing to crib from, especially when you're taking it in like a completely different direction. I really don't know what to say about this one, other than apparently there is a game with this premise that's being made. It's I guess kind of a Metroidvania from what I understand. It's called Shadow Labyrinth. But if you look up the trailer for this, yeah, it does have like Pac-Man imagery and that sort of thing. It's really, really weird.
I didn't know there was a trailer, but I have to check this
yeah, I
out.
was gonna say same thing.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But yeah, I don't think I liked this one in all honesty. I don't know what I thought of this one because I rated each of these episodes and I mentioned this like behind the scenes before we started. I gave this one a WTF out of 10 because yeah, I watched the thing, but I really don't know how I feel about it.
Well, just remember, you can eat the ghosts, but not their eyes.
Yeah, which is
True.
morbid AF.
Yeah.
I did like how they worked in like all the. I mean, there's not a lot to Pac-Man to like work in. It's just a very limited set of like information, but they did work it all in to this episode in one way or another. Whether it was just visually, there were berries that he found, like cherries, and they specifically talked about ghosts in the maze, and saying it's a maze even though it didn't look like a maze, it just looked like some wasteland. Um, and oh gosh, what else? There's a few other things that I noted
There's
that
a
were
bunch of like hidden Pac-Mans throughout the episode too. Like
okay.
the shot of like the sun behind the big pillar, like is pointing, so it makes like Pac-Man's face. So, like the sword has
Mm,
Pac-Man's face if you look at the thing. But I was confused by that part because were they saying like the part at the end he was trying to get to was that like the beginning of the maze? Like I wasn't.
maybe.
It's a messed up thing, man. I did kind of like the idea of like Pac-Man is actually trapped and just trying to get the hell out of there and he can't. I mean,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was just like, oh, go ahead, Justin.
I was gonna say, like with the dude with the sword and the little floaty thing following him around, it almost kind of felt a bit like the setup in Near Automata, because sword
Oh
play
yeah.
and then little floaty drone. It's but just I don't know. It felt like this borrowed from a lot of other better things, and just I don't know. It was all thrown in a blender, and what came out the other side wasn't anything I necessarily wanted to eat. Um, which is kind of fitting considering the theme of this episode, I guess. But uh, yeah, it's I don't know. If you're gonna reinvent something, I guess I have to applaud them for taking a chance and doing something really new and different, but maybe too new and different. You know, it's like
We
if they
needed we
tried to
needed
reinvent Mario Kart as some sort of uh, outer space, cyberpunk crime drama or something. It just yeah, there's
wait till
limits to it for sure.
February, just wait till February. I needed the little Pac-Man guy to go, "Hey, listen," as you played through, but otherwise it was good.
I did I mean this episode was like really just very strange and like really gritty and dark and weird. I did to some degree enjoy it just for its shock value. Like what am I seeing? Like, it was fun to watch it from that perspective, but um in the end, looking back on it as a whole, uh it it was perhaps just too weird for me to say it was a good episode. But it
This
certainly was a thing.
this would have to be the one I would guess that people would talk about from the series, right? Just because they took something very well known and twisted the hell out of it with this.
I would
It
imagine so.
it does seem like it's gotten the most press based on what little digging I did afterwards.
Hmm.
But
And yeah, I'm
ugh.
watching the trailer a little bit here that you pointed out. It does seem like the upcoming game looks basically exactly like this episode. So
Yeah.
at least visually for the most part. So we shall see. Anything more before we move on?
Um, kudos to them for at least taking a chance, but that's the best I can say about this one.
Fair enough. Episode 7 was on the game Crossfire, which we had some little we were talking beforehand about how we didn't know exactly what it was, and it certainly doesn't seem to be the board game where you're shooting marbles around from the 80s.
Would have been better.
That would have been
Yeah, no doubt.
and like they can turn that into something like they did with Pac-Man.
Right?
This actually is a game from 2007, which is an online tactical first-person shooter, which I was not familiar with. I'm just reading that here off of Wikipedia, but yeah, it was basically the same thing as like two teams of like mercenary corporations, these militaristic groups, and they are going head to head for various mission things, like we see in this episode. The one thing that I really kind of took away from this episode as kind of like the thing of the episode was that like both sides like kept reiterating the fact that we're not the bad guys. And I enjoyed that just as a base concept, that you've got these two sides that are like there's heavy casualties on both sides. Like both sides are like people are dying left and right. And but both sides think that they're the good guys in the situation. And I feel like that actually fits a lot of real world conflicts. It's like it's more of a meta, idea than maybe just on the surface looking at it.
I actually didn't mind this one. Surprisingly, this was like I have no idea what this game is about, which you said made sense. So, and I would have needed like more world building because they were like, get the package, take this guy, make sure he's safe, get him to the border. And I was like, why, who, what, when? Doesn't matter. But it was a kind of a fun little shootout. Um, I don't know what else is going on in this one, but it was a fun action scene, I guess.
I'm gonna be honest. This is the one episode I didn't even sit all the way through because it was so
Mm.
generic and so just uninspired. And despite all the gunfire and whatnot, it felt dull. It felt like this could have been Call of Duty or Medal of Honor or like insert name of other shooter franchise here. There was nothing to differentiate it from anything. Um, the only thing that kind of felt like it had any sort of personality was it made me think of there was in Team Fortress Classic, which was just a mod for Half-Life. Back in the day, there was a mode where it was two teams and then like one character who was just this hapless dude with a briefcase. One team was supposed to protect him, the other team was supposed to try and kill him, and the team that was supposed to protect him was supposed to escort him through the map and get him to the exit zone. And I kept thinking as I was watching this, at least if it was Team Fortress, it would have had some personality. With the different character classes and whatnot. Here, it bored me to tears pretty much, and I this is probably my least favorite episode of any of these in this show.
Oh, that's a bold statement. I don't know about that.
I do, but apparently, yeah. Well, we'll see we'll see what one you hated the most is, Cody.
I
I
mean,
I I so would say I don't share your dislike of the episode, but I can understand kind of your perspective on it. That yeah, the characters were all basically the same. Like none of them had really any personality. They're just generic military personnel. Um, just out there just doing their work. And yeah, the story didn't have a lot of detail to it, so there wasn't reason to like get and to want to like root for either side necessarily, or like I said, he didn't know what was going on. There's like they were protecting this guy, but who knows why they're doing it? Other than it seems like he paid them to do it, but why is he running? We don't know. So
yeah.
I can see your like the points on why it would not be an interesting episode.
What's interesting about this one too is like if we had gone back to like 2001, let's say, and like had any like online shooter or like even local multiplayer shooter and like tried to develop a plot for the game we were playing, like both sides are like, we're the good guys, and like they're fighting this out, and nobody would want to see that matchup. You know what I mean? Like nobody would give a shit about sitting and watching us play that game. Then, however, now if you were like a streamer doing that in today's world, you'd be like semi-famous, and you'd have all these followers, and people would watch all of your stupid exploits that you do with that. So it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. All right, let's move on. Episode 8 is about the game Armored Core. It's subtitled Asset Management. And right away, this one stands out because we have Keanu Reeves not only lending his voice, but also his face, essentially, to the episode. And this was another kind of like high energy action episode. The game Armored Core is based on mech battles, as in like giant mechanical suits that you're like piloting and doing battle with other mechs. And other than the opening sequence where we got this guy who was like basically getting drunk in a bar, it is a lot of like high speed action mech battles, which was pretty interesting. A lot of fun to watch. It's basically like watching like a dogfight from like Top Gun or something at points. But I felt like I don't know. I wonder if they had a character that they made and then said, oh, you know who'd be perfect for this role is Keanu Reeves, or if they like wanted to like put him into an episode and then like crafted this character around him. But either way, it feels like exactly what Keanu Reeves has been doing like the last 25 years. This is John Wick and Neo and Johnny Silverhand from Cyberpunk, like all mashed into one character. And I truly enjoyed like watching him in this role.
I mean, the action was fun, but like, and there's a common thread that it seems to be emerging throughout a lot of these. I didn't feel a real connection to the actual plot or the world. Like, I sure you got Keanu Reeves on one side and these people he's fighting on the other, but I didn't really, by the end of it, feel like I knew who he was working for, why. Uh, there were a lot of unanswered questions, and it was a lot of flashy spectacle, and not enough that really would make me even care enough to want to check out the games, in all honesty, if that's what the intent of this was. It's not like, ooh, I want to learn more about the unnamed people making super soldiers, mech pilots. It fell flat in terms of the storytelling. Really pretty, but that's kind of about it.
This is Keanu Reeves' best role since he portrayed Paul Sutton in the 1995 classic A Walk in the Clouds. How dare you? His greatest role on cinema has been seen in this short film. Also, there was a chase with mechs. I didn't have a lot to say about this one. It was okay. Don't you get it? They're injected with the thing too. Don't you get it, Justin? He's the best, but he's not the only.
I mean, Keanu is always fun, but he can only do so much.
I did like the ending of the episode where you think like, oh, he's gonna like connect with this other mech pilot because find out that he's like, this guy's like me.
That was a pretty cool scene.
And then just smashes his face in.
Popping a big pimple with his giant neck finger. Kind of gross.
No one is like me.
Surprise, it was actually a Highlander episode. There can be only one.
That's right. Episode 9. This one is on the game Outer Worlds, which as I said, this is a game I actually played. Subtitled The Company We Keep. And this has Amos, who is an orphan working in a backwater planet sorting garbage. Upon learning that his long-lost friend / crush named Felicity is in charge of a product testing at Anti-Cleo, which is a pharmaceutical megacorp, he signs up to be a test subject for the chance to see Felicity again, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to start on this one.
Yeah.
I haven't played this game, but as mentioned, I've seen that poster 100 times. And I know you said last time we started on this series that it was kind of like a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy, I think was a quote you used. So I was really looking forward to the like happy, jovial adventures in this one. Excited to see some good character camaraderie and like a lot of jokes and slapstick comedy. I think we got all that really. Jesus.
Perhaps twisted version of that, yes.
Holy hell.
One thing I can say is that a lot of the situations that in this episode do feel like they're exactly from the game. Like this is what a lot of these basically the game is these mega corporations have like spread out across the galaxy, and like corporations are like claiming planets basically, and so like the planet is like owned and operated by a company, and then like all the residents on the planet just think like that corporation they're like part of, like employed to, like is like the greatest thing in the world even though they're living like these terrible meager existences. So like this absolutely feels like it's sort of like right out of the game.
Interesting.
Yeah. For me, for a lot of these, I've said, yeah, whatever, meh. It just in terms of like the impact it had. This one actually made me want to play this game because the solid storytelling, very grim, heart-wrenching even. But if the narrative in the game is at all even close to as emotionally impactful as this was, I am on board. I mean, yeah, the things we do for love,
What are you
Uh,
talking about? Oh my God. There was no other game on this entire 15 episode run that made me want to less play the game that it featured than this. What
this
is wrong
actually
with you?
Dang.
this actually felt like a rounded story. I mean, not a happy one by any
Super
means, but
depressing.
yeah, but so was Silent Hill 2, and that's one of my favorite games of all time.
The new
Not
one?
everything has to be happy and sparkly and everything. There is something to be said for downers, for the darker side of storytelling.
So you think downers have a place too?
I mean, are we talking drugs now?
So you are looking forward to 2025. I just want to get you on the record here.
Don't twist my words, Cody.
That's not twisting. You just said it.
But no, I really enjoyed this episode. Honestly, if 2025 involved this going to the stars, I mean, it might be a little better, but no, I mean, it was depressing. It was heart-wrenching, like I said, and it left this is one I'll remember. And there's some of these episodes I can't say that about. So
I do agree. The episode at least is the probably I would say out of all the whole season, it's probably the most complete story. Like
yeah,
it actually has development. You see the characters go through like a timeline. It's not just like a single scene from like a part of a day or something. And it was like there was a lot of good narrative where this character who I think they did a good job of making you feel like empathy for this character, and then he just like literally subjects himself to to all this torture for the chance to like meet his like maybe long lost love, and then she just turns out to be an awful like she's
despicable
gone
human
from
being.
this sweet young woman to like this power hungry person who's willing to like throw anything under the bus to advance herself. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's really pretty dark and like heart wrenching, like you say. So but it at least like has a complete story, like with some emotion to it.
right. Yeah.
Right. On to episode 10. Um, this one is on the game Mega Man, which is obviously a retro classic. Simply subtitled Start, which I think was a fun kind of like throwback to the game where like literally is like this it just says start on the title screen. Um and so this is basically just um like a shortened version of like all the Mega Man games where Dr. Light's robotic creations have been like subverted and reprogrammed by Dr. Wily, and now they're like wreaking havoc on the city, um and they're trying to find ways to like stop these robots. Um and I I think the biggest thing I take away from this is I wish this was like 2 to 3 times longer than it was. Like if you take out the title credits, it's under 5 minutes. And I was like, when it
That
ended, I
tracks.
was like, what? That's it? That's
Yep.
it.
Uh, yeah, I agree. I mean, this was, I think, the shortest episode of this series, and it felt it. Like
Mhm.
you just getting into it, and say what you will about like the first episode with D&D, where you're just about to have that big, climactic battle. At least that felt like it had something leading up to it. Here, it's just like one fight with a bizarrely large bomb man, because
They're
like
very
the
large
robot
for what
masters
it
aren't
is.
Yeah.
supposed to be that big. Yeah. But there's one fight, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go save the day, and then just it felt very abrupt. And yeah,
it was fun. I think this one could have had a lot of potential. I mean, even if they had, you're going to say this again later too, but even if they had made this into like a much longer movie or something, like this literally felt like you're in the movie theater and then you watch this part and then the title screen came up. That was like
Mhm.
Mega Man. Like that would be the
Yeah.
intro scene. You know
Right.
what I
That's
mean?
the title drop. Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
wanted to fast track the origin story, that's what it would have been. But
Mhm.
this is very, very, very short. Hard to really put too many thoughts into that one, rating wise.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see Mega Man like in a different form though too.
Yeah. I felt like it was a really good representation of the games. Like it looked good. It felt, I think, like I expected it to. Um, and yeah, I was left wanting more,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Like I I mean, I guess I can't say like what the reasoning was, but like I would have loved to see even just like one more battle, like one
Yeah.
more of the other characters he's going against, or something, you
Yeah,
know.
to illustrate like how he gets the powers from the robots that he defeats, just something to kind of like,
Yeah.
a nod towards that, if nothing else. Yeah.
Mhm.
Would have been fun if he had walked outside and the whole world was only like 6 feet deep. Would have explained so much. Do, 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 do.
Anyways,
Oh, let's. Can we move on to this really uplifting next one?
yes, this one is much happier.
Okay, good.
Episode 11 is on the game Exodus, which, if you are not familiar with the game Exodus, that's because it's not out yet and probably won't be in 2025 either. It's probably a 2026 release. But there are trailers out there to go watch. Um, and basically the story on this one is man named Nick Hansen is a mechanic on the recently colonized ice world Lydon. And yearning for more, his daughter Mari runs away with a man named Raphael to explore the galaxy in search of priceless artifacts. Having lost his wife and is not ready to lose his daughter yet, Nick spends the rest of his life tracking her across the galaxy. And due to time dilation, when he finally reunites with her, they are essentially the same age. Um, I'll let one of you guys go first on this one.
You seem like you've got something to say on this, Cody. Do you want to, or should
I
I
mean,
take
how
over?
long do you want me to rant for on this one? I mean, this is
I'll go first. I have a feeling I'll be shorter.
go
Um,
for it. I mean, I only have one line,
s-
but I can talk for 10
oh,
minutes. Go ahead.
so at its core, I like what the story was wrapped around. That idea of chasing after someone, across unimaginable depths of space and the
Space and time.
space and time. Yeah, and how due to how physics works, how that could really go in a different way than you expect. Like really, that's the seed of a good sci-fi story. Everything around that seed, though, just felt lacking. Like I didn't know who half the people were that Nick, rendezvoused with to try and get information. In a lot of this, what story there was told in these like very summarized info dumps. That's just like, and then he went to what were they called, the Celestials or something like that, and talked to
Yes.
Yeah, I
them
think it
about
was.
their blah blah blah. And it's just like very very bullet pointy summations that didn't actually tell us anything. Um, so I really wanted to like this one, and honestly, this game had been really high on my anticipated list because, people are billing it as the next Mass Effect pretty much.
Mhm.
After watching this, it has tempered my expectations, which sucks because I mean, hopefully the game itself tells us more about what the hell's going on and who all these various factions are. But this was just a bunch of buzzwords and, just info dumps surrounding what is ostensibly a very good concept. But the whole product was underwhelming, I felt.
I will say the concept of like trying to find someone through space and somebody aging at different speeds than other people is kind of an interesting idea. I will say that. But like at its core, it's this story about this guy who's searching for his daughter who more or less ran off. I mean, I don't think she was kidnapped. She just kind of ran off. And yeah, like Justin said, it's like we see these snippets of this guy's life as he's continually like joining this faction and joining this company and like trying to find the resources to be able to get to her. And it was like they don't have very long together, do they? At the end, it's like,
Very short.
yeah, like was it all worth it? I don't know, because I feel like you could say, well, he got to see the universe also, or the galaxy, but then like essentially like he didn't do anything his entire life except look for her, which is at some point like maybe that wasn't worth it. I know it's your daughter, but like I don't know, maybe it wasn't worth it.
Very similar thoughts. I liked the basic structure for the plot. This the idea that uh he had to get his daughter back, that he wasn't ready to lose her. Great base for a story. I very quickly got lost in this idea that he was moving through time, I guess, slower than she was, because she was aging faster than he was. And they didn't do anything to explain how that was happening. And I was like, wait, what? Why is that happening? Because it doesn't make any sense. Because like they're both traveling from point A to point B theoretically, because they don't give us any information beyond the fact that they are both going to the same destination. But they like talk about moving when you're moving close to the speed of light, time slows down. But if they're both going, essentially my thought is if they're both going from point A to point B and one of them is going faster than the other person, they would simply be there first and then just wait for the other one to catch up. Why is she aging like decades more than he is in that same time? And I can't wrap my head around that. And they didn't give me any information for that. And so a lot of the story kind of lost its steam for me because of that.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I hadn't considered that because yeah, he is always playing catch up, and somehow she's always ahead of him.
Yeah,
Yet
she gets there
always,
first,
yeah,
yet
doesn't make
he's
any sense.
moving slower. I don't know.
Huh.
Like the time dilation stuff in like Interstellar was like perfect. If you remember that movie, was like, the gravity around the planets would slow down time, and like he was losing time relative to Earth. It worked beautifully. And this was like a very similar idea, but it didn't make any sense to me. So
Actually, if you want to see a version of this story done right, there's a early 2000s short film. It is animated. It's called Voices of a Distant Star. And I'm not sure where you can really find it to watch these days, but it's like 20, 25 minutes long. And it's about an interstellar war that breaks out, and two childhood, sweethearts, for lack of a better term. One who decides to become a pilot on the front lines of the war, and one who stays behind. And the distance that keeps growing and growing and growing between them, where messages start to take days, then weeks, then years to travel back and forth between them, as one is just fighting to try and protect humanity as a whole. The other is waiting, and it's a tearjerker. I mean, if you do manage to track this down, just be prepared to cry because it is a very well told story, and it has a lot more emotional impact, and better science really than this one does. Voices of a Distant Star, fantastic short film.
does one of them give up their four appendages to have them replaced by mechanical limbs?
Not quite.
Fair enough.
You're just gonna keep hammering at that, aren't you, Cody?
Yep.
All right then. At least you're honest.
Let's move on to episode 12. Based on the game Spelunky and subtitled Tally, featuring a young adventurer named Anna Spelunky. Apparently that's her last name. Trying to get through a cave which is full of dangers in search of treasure, and falling to her death time and time again. Where we also meet a character named Liz Mutton, who it's not clear if she is any kind of relation to Anna. We don't know. But Liz gives her a lot of like life lessons about
Dying.
each run. Yeah. being different, and the memories that you keep, and essentially continue trying hard. Yes. Um, to me, honestly, this should have been the first episode of the series. Like it, I feel like, I guess maybe it's maybe more for my personal feelings, but like I kind of explained some of my feelings on what I thought this series kind of like meant as a whole. And I feel like that message came out almost completely in this episode. And I almost feel like if this had been the first episode of the series, it would have kind of like set the tone perhaps for the remainder of the series, but that could just be me.
Yeah, I liked this one. Very nice visual style. And actually adding a bit of metaphysical musings to the idea of roguelike. It was really interesting, I thought. Um, Kind of would have been nice to know how they got there, why they were there, aside from just looking for treasures. Like, how did they find this place that keeps changing and, not letting them actually die when they die? But overall, yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was deeper than it seemed on the surface, and yeah, this was a pretty fun time.
This episode was one of my favorite moments since the inauguration of President Barack Obama, and I'll tell you why. After sitting through so much despair and sadness in these episodes, darkness and needless fighting, we finally come across Splunky. Splunky, the girl who learned the lesson the hard way of what each life really means as a video game character, and why each run of yourself in a video game is almost like well, some would say, a different life than the one before that. But this actually was an episode that I enjoyed a lot. I thought it came at about the right spot in this season because I was freaking burned out on heavy gunfire and darkness and depressing tales. And then this one hit and kind of lifted me back up in the right spot. Now, I think, Brett, to your point, we could probably rejigger the order of these 15 slightly differently. Maybe this would have been even a little bit better a couple episodes before that, and maybe shove Mega Man a couple episodes before that. But I actually did like this one quite a bit, and I just thought like it was a cool concept to think about. Pac-Man explored this a little bit too, but like, what is one of those runs as a character in your video game? If it were real, what does it really mean, and what's different from time to time?
Mm.
This is making me think slightly of I unlocked a side quest on Tears of the Kingdom last night where you have a thing called the Hero's Path, and it's essentially you pull up the world map and you can basically hit play and it'll show your guy walking around like the world map, the huge world map, like the speed you were walking around, where you were going, which is kind of fun, but also I didn't know until I pressed play on it. Every time you died, as you were playing through the game, it would get to that point in like the progress bar, but you'll see yourself like running on the map, and then you'll get to the point and they'll be like, oh! There'll be like this death animation noise that he makes, and I was like, oh God. So there were some parts that were like, which kind of reminded me of this one a little bit. So
Nice. Yeah, I did enjoy that it was a bit more of a warmer episode with a nice meaningful message behind it. I do agree with you. A lot of these episodes are very dark and depressing. So it was I agree, it was like a relief to get to this episode and have something that wasn't just death and sadness. So although it was a lot of death, it just wasn't sad death.
yeah.
So on to death is Concord, the game that died almost instantly. This one's subtitled Tale of the Implacable. Story about some pirates who have stolen a what turns out to be a chip with maps on it, like star charts, um, for safe routes throughout the galaxy, which to pirates are worth a whole lot of money. And as they are essentially get caught by the guild, betrayed by a person to the guild, they make their escape, never to be seen again. Whether they survived or not, we do not know.
The Tempest, man. I don't know.
The legend. That's how the legend goes. But this one actually did feel like Guardians of the Galaxy, whereas
Yes.
Outer Worlds did not, despite my proclamations that it might.
Don't actually know what this game is like, but this one actually, maybe more than anything else, made me want to know what the game was actually like. I was like, this is actually a pretty fun little rescue episode. And I enjoyed the characters a little bit we got of them with this one. This was fun. I actually said, like, this as a TV show would be something I might watch. Like, they kept this story going, and I got to know these characters. And I also liked the fact that, this is potentially all just a bar story that somebody's telling. I thought that was like a fun little frame narrative on there as well. So
Sure.
Justin's shaking his head because he has awful taste. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I'm shaking my head because I do know what this game was like, and he would have been very disappointed. If the actual game had been at all like what was shown on the screen, like an old, like a BioWare style action RPG with like a party that you could, direct to do different things, and it was all about, heists or anything more than just another hero shooter, which is what it ended up being. So like Overwatch, like Marvel Rivals, like any number of these things that have kind of
Valorant,
fallen by the wayside.
CS:GO.
Oh God, I miss Battleborn. That one was fun. Yeah, that gigantic. That's what it was. It was a multiplayer, always online shooter with basically escorting payloads and like trying to control choke points and things like that. If it had actually been an RPG with, plot and characters that did things aside from just run around and shoot each other, it might have had a chance. It would have been more interesting, that's for sure. Because watching this episode, I would have played this game if it had been what it was presented. It felt like a mix between, like you said, Guardians of the Galaxy and I think Bullet Train in a way, because it just the high flying frenetic action and just the absurd situations that cropped up. It had a lot of life and character and just a personality to it. And you can't do a lot with that if all you've got is just same handful of maps over and over again, fighting over objectives that don't have any overarching story or anything to them. So yeah, if Concord had been something different than what it was, it could have been a very fine game.
Well, I'll have you know, I was watching some gameplay footage as you were talking, and you're exactly right. So hope you're happy.
I kind of hate being right. In all honesty. But yeah,
I know one of the big complaints about the game was that the characters were not interesting, and they're just kind of like basic and not fun. But the characters in this story seem to have some life and be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is insult to injury, really.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, and I'm sure there's a parallel universe where it actually was a good game and succeeded and probably has sequels and stuff, but not our timeline.
Speaking of parallel universes, that feeds right into episode number 14. Potentially, maybe? We don't even know how this ends exactly. We're going to get into that in just a moment. This is on the game Honor of Kings, which apparently I had to look this up because I didn't know what game this was about. This is apparently based on the MOBA game. So it's a multiplayer online battle arena game, which is also on mobile. So it's a mobile MOBA.
Yeah.
Mobile.
Which, to my knowledge, this episode has very little of anything to do with the game. But this was one of the more interesting episodes of the series for me by far. Very thought-provoking and interesting. And just quick synopsis of the story here. We have Yi Jing, who lives in a city which is completely controlled by this supercomputer named Tiangong. Um, it's essentially like a living city where like the city itself is even just like the computer can like move things around and like control it any way it wants to. And he's like watching the city basically like fall apart and believing that this computer is like deteriorating. So he goes to challenge it for control of the city. And this was a real head trip by the end. You've got a supercomputer controlling this living city. You've got the Tiangong stating that it knows everything about the past and the future, everything that will happen, it already knows. And perhaps these things have already happened based on the things he says. The game that they're playing is being carried out in real life across the city. So like moves they make are actually like destroying things in the city. And at the end, it's either a multiverse, a time loop, possibly some sort of simulation, like Matrix style. I mean, what do you think this ending is going at here?
Ending I don't quite get. Because I mean it feels like nothing had happened, which might be playing up the idea that yeah, fate is inescapable, but so much of the rest of it was like a middle finger to fate, which I liked. And because any story where where the premise is, oh, this has to happen and you don't have any choice in it, having the heroes, basically say, no, fuck you, we're going to change things is that is right up my alley. I love that kind of narrative.
Finding a way around it.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you know he
So,
did though?
well, that's the thing. I don't know if he did because of that ending. And it's
I don't know if
just,
there was a fuck you in there at all. I think there was an attempted fuck you, but
yeah, until that ending, it seemed like it was successful because he walks away and he seems to have the mantle of the city controller now and whatnot. But then all of a sudden, the guy he was playing against just steps out of the wall again. And he's like, "So you've come to challenge the?" And I'm blanking on the name. I know you said it several times. Tiangong.
Shang Shang.
Yeah. So I don't quite know what to make of the ending, but 95% of this episode I really really enjoyed, because it built upon itself in a way that was very thought provoking and very satisfying. And then the ending is just kind of like, well, did any of that actually happen, or did it matter, or yeah? But most of it I liked.
God, you have bad taste. All right. No. I said cool visual. What's the point of this story? Like, what are we doing here? We're back where we started. What's going on? I don't know. Even if he beat the guy, like that could still be the fate though. Like, the computer could have known that it was going to beat him and say, fuck you. That could still be the fate. That's the problem with fate, Justin.
The
You
computer,
can't escape it. Or
the
can you?
computer seemed surprised. That's all I'm saying. Unless it decided to take up to put a few points in acting, to basically say, oh, I didn't
I
see
mean,
that coming.
it voluntarily took like the visage of a person, so maybe.
Either way, I liked this episode. Clearly you didn't.
I didn't like it then.
Hey, we're finally living up to our name on this podcast.
2 out of 10.
Ooh, that was fighting words, man.
2 out of 10.
I mean, granted, I'm sure, based on what I know of the game, from what Brett said, I'm sure none of this plays any role in the game itself. So if you're going for like game accuracy, sure, 2 out of 10 makes sense. But as a story, I thought this.
Where are they
was
playing?
interesting.
Is that Go that they were playing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's an exciting way to determine who wins control.
Apparently, there are more possible plays than there are like atoms in the universe. So
He is Gary Kasparov. That's who the boy was, if you didn't pick that up. Yes.
I don't actually know that game, but I did enjoy the episode. It was I felt like it had a lot of like Inception kind of vibes to it. True that in the end maybe the story didn't actually go anywhere. But in the time that we spent in this world, I really enjoyed like watching how things played out and um like it's almost like a psychological game that's being played as well as the physical game they're playing, and all that really felt really cool to me. And then like that really kind of really it stuck the landing for me. Like it was like a whoa, what the hell kind of ending, and while it does leave me kind of like spiraling and and I try to figure out what is actually going on here. I did enjoy it quite a bit. It's one episodes I enjoyed the most on this series, I think. So
I liked it. 8 out of 10.
You can't agree with both of us, Cody. uh,
I'm not disagreeing with you, to be clear.
oh yes.
uh,
On to the last episode titled so this one is confusing me a bit. It's titled Playtime: Fulfillment. It appears to be like basically just like a PlayStation, like kind of just generic PlayStation mashup. I didn't really know. I'm certain it's not based on a game. I'm like 99% sure of that. But it does throw in a whole bunch of different other games kind of mushed into one thing here.
I saw Sackboy, but enough about Kevin Hart. Let's talk about the rest of the episode.
Yes, as you say, this one does have another cameo voice acting here, with Kevin Hart as the buddy bot. And I don't know for certain, but the lead actress is named Heaven Hart, so I assume that's probably Kevin Hart's daughter.
Interesting.
Perhaps. I don't know that for certain, but it would make sense. Yeah, so essentially you've got this delivery person named O, and she ends up having to deliver this blue like starfish looking creature thing to this location, kind of like by this mysterious stranger. Just gives her this package, and then she is on the way. She's basically confronted by a wide range of different other video game characters, including Helldivers from the game Helldivers. There's a Colossus from Shadow of the Colossus. There's Kratos.
Oh, I missed him.
God of War. And then,
interesting.
As you say, by the end we had Sackboy from Little Big Planet. We had the character from the game Journey, which I played briefly. I never finished.
There were 3 prostitutes from GTA 5 I saw.
Oh, I missed those.
Yeah. Oh, that was a different playtime. Never mind.
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry. I did feel like this episode was kind of fun and playful. I guess it felt pretty good for a series finale, like a wrap up kind of thing. But overall, it wasn't much that I really fell in love with at all.
Justin hated it because he hates fun. So go ahead, Justin.
I kind of hated this one because it was nothing but an advertisement, a very blatant advertisement for various Sony properties. And it blatant to the fact where they, the Helldivers guys were like, democracy isn't done with you, like 4 times. It's like, did you get it? Did you catch that? Did you know it's Helldivers 2? Did you get it?
I didn't.
But yeah, initially, like with the setup, with her on the bike and delivering stuff, I was almost wondering if this was some sort of Pac-Man-esque take on Paperboy.
I thought that also.
Yeah. But then it's like, oh wait, no, this is just a 10-minute long ad, and once you get that straight up corporate, hey, do you remember this, kind of a thing, it just it sucked all of all of any sort of enjoyment out of it for me.
I feel like there was a Sony PlayStation commercial back in the day that was very similar to this, wasn't there? With like all their characters interacting on like a big screen, like in some cinema type setup.
Does sound familiar. Yeah.
Like it might even have been like a preview at the movies or something. I don't know. I feel like that was a thing once upon a time.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
I thought this was a fun one to end on also, Brett, just with the imagination, the power of imagination in gaming. As soon as I realized we can't get through even one goddamn property without Kevin Hart making an appearance, I was like, oh God, but still super fun. Burnt Orange FTW, just putting that out there. And this was fun. I don't know, this was kind of a fun little one to end on.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a story, but it was kind of just fun to see all these characters lumped in together.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the joke of her completing her goal, and then the reward is a burnt orange skin for her bike,
Yeah.
even though the bike was already orange.
Different.
Um,
Burnt orange.
That does feel very video gamey.
Yes.
these days, yeah.
Yes, it does.
So it did feel like it was fun, but it really wasn't much of an episode, I guess. But
Yeah.
so that rounds out the series. So I guess the first question I have, and you guys kind of gave some of these ideas as we are going through, but did you have a favorite or least favorite episode?
Based on the scores I gave, I think my favorite was the D&D one. Despite the fact that it didn't really have a full ending, it really captured the feel of the property. But in close a tie for second, where it was, and I can picture Cody's reaction now. The Outer Worlds episode.
That was great. I love that one.
And the Honor of Kings episode. Those two were tied for second in terms of the ratings I gave. So, and those ratings were 9 and 8 respectively for the ones that were tied.
Yeah, tough one for me. I think thinking back, I still liked what was the property, the New World game with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I still liked that from the first 4, just as like a funny episode. And then probably beyond that, I would pick maybe the Splunky episode and actually the Concord episode. I still think that'd be like a fun universe to see a TV show set in. Like I probably would watch that.
Yeah.
Be like Andor, but enjoyable. So there's that. How about you, Brett?
The episodes that I got the most enjoyment out of, I think the Warhammer 40K was a fun testosterone ride. Enjoyed for that time I was with it. The Honor of Kings episode really had me, like, I was really invested in just where that story was going and like how it was unfolding. That one really did a lot for me there. I'm just trying to think. There weren't any that I really disliked. I think the Pac-Man one, as I said, was very interesting for its kind of shock value, but in the end probably was one of my least favorite ones overall. And probably the playtime one, it probably was not as low as the Pac-Man one, but just the fact that it was, like Justin said, it wasn't based on a game. It was basically just a bunch of, like, almost a PlayStation commercial. Like that left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, despite it being a fun ride at the same time. We talked in the first episode about the like whether or not we need to understand these games to enjoy the episodes. And we already talked about that, but do you have any further thoughts on that, or like anything that came up from these newer episodes that may have expanded that thought for you?
Well, for a few of them, like the Armored Core episode, maybe if I was familiar with the games and I had an idea of what exactly these enhanced pilots actually were and like the history behind them, maybe I would have gotten more out of it. So that there are a few where it feels like, some familiarity with the property would have helped. But then there's others, like I haven't played Spelunky, but I know a little bit about it, and I feel that got its point across pretty well. Um, Same with the Outer Worlds episode. So I think it really boils down to how they were presented. Like there are some where it feels like they expected you to kind of know already, and I think that was to its detriment. But the ones that actually just tried to tell their own self-contained story worked a bit better rather than trying to tie into the universe as a whole.
Yeah, for me, I don't know the answer to that question. I wish I did. This kind of goes back to, again, my ideas from the first episode, which was like, who is this for, and what is it that they're exactly trying to achieve with these? The ones that I enjoyed are not games that I've played before. Matter of fact, I have never heard of any of the three of them, if I'm being perfectly honest. Not even Splunky, which I assume is like cool kids Splunker Pitfall. I don't know, something like cutesy based on something that previously exists. But
Makes
so
me
I don't
feel
know that you
interesting.
need to, and a couple of the other ones that I knew or had heard of at least and knew a little bit about, like that didn't change how I saw those episodes, I don't think, in too many ways. All I know is I don't want to play the Outer Worlds anymore, so got that going for me. Save some money there. Thanks, Secret Level.
Uh,
Well, just a few ratings here from other places I looked at. So on Amazon itself, this currently has a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is their rating system. IMDb has this at 7.5 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has a 65% with critics and 76% with viewers. So based on all of that, let's hear your guys' ratings for this. We'll just do a season total rating rather than individual episodes. And when you're ready, go ahead and give it.
okay. For me, with the exception of the Pac-Man episode, which I didn't know what number to put on that, I gave each of these like a number rating from 1 to 10, and then divided them by 14 instead of 15 because I don't know what to say about Pac-Man. Um, so altogether, the aggregate, mean average rating for Secret Level that I am going to give is 5.5, which is actually a little lower than I expected, given how much I liked some of these, but others were just not good.
Heartless bastard. What the heck, man? Oh, all right. Closing thoughts from me. Another meta question here. These are so dark and depressing. And in like 10 of the 15 cases, I would say, besides the lighthearted ones and some of the one or two that had a little bit of humor to it. But I don't know if this is commentary on the types of video games we like to play as a society, or if B, this is like commentary on the people that chose the properties for this series, and that's kind of what they were intrigued in, or the stories they wanted to tell. Um, I don't know. I think a little more variety would have felt good though. Like I think the Splunky episode stood out because it was like the most warm-hearted episode of the run. I think the Schwarzenegger episode stuck out because it was the only humorous one, really, of these. Like more variety, I think, would have been good. Like even the Honorary Kings episode, which was not a favorite of mine, but you guys seem to really enjoy it. But that was different, at least, than some of the ones that were like, here's giant metal monster shooting gun versus other metal monster wizard warlord shooting gun in a very dark. I will also mention I tried to watch a lot of this series in my living room where there was only some light coming in through like windows that had blinds on them. And these episodes are actually dark, like literally dark as shit. I could barely see what was happening on the screen in some parts with these. Um, so I don't know, and then I go back again to the like why were these created? Was it just because somebody wanted to tell stories? Was it because they're attempting to get people interested in these games? Was it because they're trying to like satisfy the people that played these games before? Um, I don't know. To me, they're still too short to really do justice for anything. Like I mentioned in the first one, I would have much preferred that they had chosen five of these properties and made five 1 hour movies than what they did, because that would have got me into these stories a little deeper, more world building. I would have tied to the characters a little bit better. I think that would have been way better for me. But as it is, I'm going to give this probably a 5 out of 10 question mark, because I'm still not really sure who they made this for.
Hmm. Okay.
Be
Couple of
intrigued to see if
those.
there's more of these that come out. Also, do we
Yeah,
know anything on that?
I
I think there is a
do. I
season
do.
two on its
Ooh,
way.
Um, yeah, it's a couple of low scores from you guys. I overall, just kind of break it down. I thought the visuals were pretty incredible throughout the series. I don't think there was a single episode that I looked at and was like, that it just doesn't look good. Everything looked pretty spectacular. I felt like the voice acting was really pretty great in nearly every episode. We even had I was calling them cameos, but they aren't really cameos, just high level voice actors. We got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Keanu Reeves and Kevin Hart in there. Um, and some other like not as well known, obviously, people, but other well known voice actors in there. Um, and the like the music I felt was great throughout all the episodes as well. Like a lot of times I found myself, I recognized that I was listening to the music, and that was like it getting me into the episodes more than just the story alone. And I do have to agree that like the the shortness of these episodes, and some of them being like very short, um was a detriment to them as a whole, generally speaking. We definitely had a few episodes in there where there was very little to no story. Um, in some cases, I think by design, like Warhammer. Um, I think like when people think of that, they think of like the action. So I think that's why they probably focused on that a bit more. But there certainly were episodes where we just didn't know a lot, and it was hard to get into them because of that. But at the same time, like this is created by the same people who did Love, Death, and Robots, which is, as I've said before, another series that I really, really enjoy. And these episodes felt very much like what you get in that show, where it's just little snippets, a little window into something else, and you don't really know what's happening in this world outside of that window necessarily. It's just like a look at something that is interesting in its own right. And I guess it comes down to whether or not you enjoy like short format things, where I feel like I do. And it sounds like Cody, you definitely enjoy more a full story rather than just like a short little snippet of something. So I think it definitely a person's enjoyment of the series probably would heavily be factored in by that, whether you you even enjoy a short form story. Though we did have episodes like the Outer Worlds one where it was a complete story in a short amount of time. So it was just kind of like what they chose to do with those particular episodes. But overall, I enjoy this series quite a bit. Not all of them were great, but there were a lot that I left the episode feeling, wow, that was really cool. I really enjoyed watching that. I would like to see more even. So I am going to fall on the higher side of this one. I'm just going to go with 8.0 on this one. This was something I really enjoyed. I as Cody, you asked the question just a bit ago. Are we going to get more of these? And we are. As of December 17th, this series has been renewed for a second season. So we shall see. Pardon me. Um, where they go with this, if I assume the second season will probably be very similar in formatting. We'll see if they choose to go with a little bit different theming or different games based on feedback that they've gotten. But I think we're gonna, one more question for you here, and piggybacking off of that, the fact that they're having another season. I want to ask you guys, what games would you like to see in future seasons or in this kind of format? And so while you guys are thinking about that a little bit, just a few things that came up to mind when I asked myself this question. So Elden Ring is a game that I really enjoyed, and I think would lend itself very well to this kind of format where you could just have like this nameless warrior battling this gigantic this boss in a level, and would very much, I think, fit into this kind of thing. But that game is already like very kind of cinematic in its own right. And I did also think like other games that aren't necessarily cinematic that I would like to see them do with this kind of treatment with. And so just a few of them I came up with in no particular order. Sea of Thieves, I think, could be interesting and fun. No Man's Sky, I feel like already has like a structure for a story like this, but it doesn't necessarily give you a lot of story. So it would not take a huge leap to convert that. And then some more abstract ones. I thought Guitar Hero could be fun. Like you like instead of just playing music, like there's a purpose why you're playing the music. Like it's some sort of like battle or something, like you're fighting off a space alien. I don't know, but and then like Sim City, I thought would be pretty cool. Like you could have, it could be an idea of like a person, like a person building like a miniature city like in front of them, and then like have all these like little tiny people like living in in this city that he's building, and he's just like this god of this little city. Could be kind of fun to watch. But I will now present this question up to you guys. What do you got?
You want to go first, Justin?
If you want to, go ahead. It's up to you.
All right, well, I'll throw a couple out here quick.
Okay.
So when you asked this question, I thought of a couple games right away. Two, I'm just going to combine into one pick because it's kind of the same joke answer, but it's really not a joke answer, which is Burger Time and Tapper. I just thought those would be a totally different style of show than this, and I know they do the Tapper joke a little bit in Wreck-It Ralph, but I think it would be fun to like just throw some cameos in there and kind of talk about what's happening in their various video games. Maybe compare some war stories while they're sitting around having a brewski or two, like President Barack Obama did at his 2008 inauguration. Another one I thought of here was the original Contra. I thought might be fun because there is not, it's a lot of like heavy, dark mech warfare in these episodes, but like somebody in like a jungle running and gunning against like some aliens. I thought that would like visually look very distinctive than the stuff we've seen so far in the show. Maybe like Splunky might have been the closest to like that kind of setting, but even that's like the wrong kind of setting. And then I wanted them two more here for you quick. One, I wanted them to tell us what's finally going to happen with Hollow Knight Silksong because we lost it and we want to know where that's at. And then the last one, this is my deep cut. You ready for this one? I want them to do a 20-minute story on Doc Lewis from Punch-Out. That's right, Little Max Trainer.
I do like that one.
Maybe he's like running a convenience store, or maybe he does like Uber Eats now or something. Like what's going on with that guy? Where did he come from? Where did he go? Where did he come from? Cotton Eye Joe Lewis. Doc Lewis, sorry, Doc Lewis. Yes.
All
All right, Justin, what'd you pick?
Well, you'll be happy to know, Cody, that despite the fact that the episodes here that I liked, were among the darker and more dour offerings, three, if not four, of the ones remaining on my list, because you listed a couple of them, are much brighter in terms of like tone and even just color palette. Starting with Zenless Zone Zero, which is a game that came out last year. It's a Chinese gacha game, but it's got a cyberpunk setting, very, very colorful, a ton of really interesting characters. The gameplay wasn't really to my taste. It was very much just button mashy, but there's so much personality and life to the setting and people that inhabit it that I think they could do a lot with that. Um, Similarly, Disgaea, which is a long running series of RPGs that's very heavy on grinding, so it was never really my cup of tea. But again, tons of really interesting, colorful characters that could, you could do a lot with them. Especially considering just the sheer amounts of damage they do to each other and to like enemies and that sort of thing. You could really build an absurdist kind of power fantasy little snippet of, just these characters rampaging through the underworld. It could be a lot of fun. Um, Less colorful, Control, which is essentially SCP, the game, where it's all centered around the Federal Bureau of Control, which houses strange and anomalous artifacts and tries to keep them contained and safe and away from the rest of the world. Endless possibility for a story in that sort of setting. And then my deep cuts. I'm going to save the most ridiculous one for last, but Strider came to mind because that had such a different and unique like feel to it when it came out in arcades ages ago. You're this swordsman slashing his way through the former Soviet Union with like, mecha eagles and giant mechanical gorillas and stuff. Just from the rule of cool, that could work. I mean, and just have this mysterious figure, trying to overthrow this tyrannical, Soviet-esque government or something like that.
Is that the
And
first video game to have Kazakhstan as a setting?
it might be,
Might be.
unless you count like Civilization, maybe.
Wow.
And finally, just because I wanted to go a bit even more classic and, and hopefully not have it turn out the same way that Pac-Man did, Dig Dug.
Oh,
I mean, that is kind of a forgotten franchise, and it's colorful enough, and it has, its own kind of set of rules and just atmosphere to it. I think in the right hands, you could do something interesting with that. So those are my picks.
I'm gonna have one more because I just thought of it. And also shout out to Brett, who was our podcast host of the year, but he wasn't on the Fondies last week. So shout out to him. But I thought of one more because of him. Also, I want a 30-minute Blast Corps episode of somebody trying to get the nuke through a city.
Or what about Power Stone? God, those games were fun back in the day.
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
Dreamcast Arena Fighter, pretty much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very, very fun and just absolutely insane.
I didn't have a Dreamcast.
Yeah.
I didn't either, but I played, on a friend of mine's, and it was a very good time.
All right, then let's throw Clay Fighter in there too while we're at it. Let's do it.
A claymation
Nice.
episode would have been
Yeah.
cool.
Right? There you go.
Yeah, some different art styles would have been fun to throw in there.
Interesting.
Agreed.
Yep. Any further thoughts before we wrap this up?
On my end, I'd say despite the relatively mid rating that I gave this, I'm curious to see what they do in season 2. I mean, what games they pick, what they decide to do with them. So I don't hate this show by any means. It just parts of it misfired for me. So I'd like to see them, kind of learn from what they have so far, maybe change up the tones a bit, because I know the overall darkness of it really, really seemed to not be Cody's cup of tea. But yeah, I'd like to see more variety. And I'm cautiously optimistic to see what they do from here.
I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if they did the like 5 episode seasons, 60 minutes an episode, and they made this an anthology series and like let it run for 6 seasons. You'll still get like 30 properties in, but just give us time in these universes, especially if we have no idea what these games are in some cases. Like they also didn't choose, I'm sorry, but like I know I'm a Nintendo guy, but they also did not choose like all AAA titles here that the common person would know. So you can have those in there, but like explore it then. Tell us about it. Show us more.
It seems like a fair thought. Yeah. And yeah, I said like some of these I would like to see like more of them. So some longer format episodes would be cool.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we are wrapped up here for this episode. This has been the Fawn Pod. Friends occasionally not disagreeing. Keep an eye out for our next episodes coming up, which include Marvel's What If, the Skeleton Crew review, Sinking City, which is a game review, and then we should have some most anticipated lists for you soon coming up. So
Yeah.
And with that, we're out of here. We have had Cody and Justin here, and I am Brett, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Take care.